What's good? Brian Tong here, and welcome to the Apple Bits. You know how it is for everything good and bad inside the world of Apple. Hey, let's get to it. And the big story this week, according to reports, Apple is planning to launch an iPhone with an in-display fingerprint sensor in China, not the US or anywhere else, but in China. Now, the Global Times report says Apple's intentions are to release a more budget-friendly phone for the Chinese market, and the in-display fingerprint sensor is less expensive than Apple's Face ID technology. The new iPhone with what I guess we could call the next generation of Touch ID will be a phone specifically for China to try and curb its declining sales in the region due to higher iPhone prices, and have felt the effects of cost pressure from the 18-month-long trade war between the US and China. Now, by removing the Face ID facial recognition system and replacing it with an under-display fingerprint scanner, Apple will be able to save on costs. This is honestly a surprise after Apple has gone all in to remove any kind of Touch ID with their latest phones over the past couple of years, bringing us that lovely notch. I know you know that I love this, where all the Face ID tech lives on the phone. You know, I've wanted an in-display fingerprint sensor from Apple from the start. It gets rid of the massive notch, but even here in the US, the phone could feel just as modern and slick with a lower price point. I mean, was anyone really asking for a $1,000 phone? Oh, you were, right? No, you weren't. Chinese users, they aren't asking for it either. Now, we saw a lot of companies follow along with the notch initially, but since then, Huawei, Xiaomi, Oppo, and Vivo have moved towards in-display fingerprint scanners for not only their premium phones, but also their mid-range phones with OLED and LCD screens. I think it would be a surprise for Apple to really change directions and move back towards a Touch ID solution across at least all their flagship phones. Touch ID still does live on their multiple MacBook lines, but we'll see if this happens. Designing a new iPhone with Touch ID specifically to stop their declining China sales is a move that many of us didn't expect to see, especially if it undermines their high-end brand position. But, you know, things have changed. Phones in general are so good these days that people don't need to spend $1,000 on their phone. In China, many users prefer phones around that 5,000 yuan or $730 price point. It's not really clear when the new iPhone could be launched, but reports say this is the preliminary plan. All right, now, we already have talked about how new MacBook Pro models were registered with the European Economic Commission a few weeks ago with new model numbers that could signal the long-rumored 16-inch MacBook Pro is coming this year. This week, Apple received FCC approval for an unreleased MacBook Pro with model number A2159, which is also one of the numbers registered in Europe. The FCC documentation specifically identifies it as a MacBook Pro, but the MacBook Pro has already been refreshed this year, so could it be the 16-incher or potentially just be an updated 13-inch MacBook Pro without a touch bar? But come on, that would be no fun. Now, the FCC ended up pulling all of the documentation of the new machine. Why would they do that if it wasn't a big deal? Because we're all hoping it's the new big screen MacBook Pro. And hey, you want to see the latest CAD images of Apple's 2019 iPhone since you don't know what it looks like already? Well, they're here and have surfaced online thanks to Slash leaks. The purported designs include what we'll call it the iPhone 11, the iPhone 11 Max, and the iPhone 11R with its 2 camera lens and not 3. The designs still point to a Lightning connection and no USB-C. We pretty much know what to expect with all the renders, the leaked physical cases from China, and now these CAD designs which fall in line with everything that we've seen since as far back as January. Now, rumors point to a frosted glass design for the 6.5 and 5.8-inch iPhones with OLED screens, while the 11R could come in new shades like lavender and green. The only surprise would really be if the iPhone doesn't look like this at all. Well, that's just slim to none, and Slim just left the building. All right, now finally, in a fun story or we just dodged a bullet. Several stories about Jony Ive's time at Apple continue to surface, and Tim Cook went as far as to send a direct email to NBC News calling some of the coverage about Jony's dispirited attitude and more distant relationship with Apple as absurd, with conclusions that just don't match reality. Now, there might have been arguments about how Ive wanted the Apple Watch to be presented as a fashion accessory versus Apple execs who wanted it to be more of an extension of the phone. But according to a report by The Information, Ive also worked on the rumored Apple Car project and came up with multiple prototypes for it, including one made out of wood and leather and lacked a steering wheel at Ive's insistence. Now, I've wanted the car to be controlled by Siri. Yeah, and showed off the concept to Tim Cook with an actress pretending to be Siri by responding to voice commands from Apple execs on hand. Now, there are no other details of how this would have worked or how it was received at the meeting, but I, for one, am very thankful that a steering wheel-less, Siri-controlled car never saw the light of day. Yikes. All right, if you like this video, you know the drill. Thumbs up, subs up, and hit that notification bell, ding, to get all my latest videos with a nice vibration in your pants when you get a new one. Videos aren't the only thing I do, so also check out my weekly Apple Bits XL audio podcast where I just dive into the big stories that matter with special guests. And you can support all my independent work, including the podcast and more, at patreon.com/BrianTong. So thanks so much for watching. Take care and be safe. Peace.